Everyone, it's me Joshua, aka Future Filmmaker 3940 here once again, and since we are in October and I've seen a lot of 2018 releases that I have yet to review, I decided to do a little bit of a catch-up video. This is the first one, of course. This may be the first. And this video, I talk about 6 different films that I've yet to review, and those 6 movies are Mile 22, Searching, KkKlansman, I Think We're Alone Now, To All the Boys I Loved Before, and A.X.L. So these are 6 different reviews. Now, if you don't want to watch the whole video, don't worry, I will put down time codes in the description down below, and I will also give them their own individual review once I upload this to YouTube. So here we are with these 6 2018 reviews. So here we are, and let's get started with Mile 22. Mile 22 is the latest effort from Peter Berg and Mark Wahlberg. This is their 4th collaboration concerning with Lone Survivor, Deepwater Horizon, and Patriots Day from last year. This is their 4th collaboration, and it is directed by, again, Peter Berg. Stars Mark Wahlberg, Lauren Cohan, Ronda Rousey, Iko Uwais, and Nikolai Nikolaeff. So the basic premise of Mile 22 is that we follow a group of people led by Mark Wahlberg, and in this film we have, of course, Mark Wahlberg and the group, and they are CIA operatives led by James Silva, which is Mark Wahlberg, and he leads a small but lethal paramilitary team on an urgent and dangerous mission. And the mission is they must transfer a foreign intelligence asset from an American embassy in Southeast Asia to an airfield for extraction, a distance of 22 miles. Silva and the soldiers find themselves in a race against time as the facility's military, police, and street gangs close in to reclaim the asset. Now, going into this movie, I heard a lot of negative things, and I saw trailers, and I was like, Mark Wahlberg and Peter Berg are doing another collaboration? This is awesome. And so, I saw a few of the bad reviews, but I wanted to give the movie a chance for myself. And so I decided to watch the film, and the outcome is, while it is not as bad as people are making it out to be, I do think there are a lot of things that are wrong with this movie. And I will say that it's an okay film at best. So let's get into the positives that I have with Mile 22. So my first positive is the performances of all of this movie's cast members. The cast, they do very well with each other. They are given decent enough material, and they do fine with what is required of them. Mark Wahlberg, as usual, he's always great. I like Mark Wahlberg as an actor, and I think he's really good here for the material that he's given. And I felt like he had some character development and persona to him. I felt like he had some coolness to him, some awesomeness to him, and I do like him for the most part. Iko Uwais as Lenore, I really liked him. Like I said, he is that one guy they have to go save, and I thought he was really great, and he surrenders himself, and I really like his performance in the movie as well. You also got the beautiful Lauren Cohan in here, who is gorgeous in everything she's in. I have seen her in The Walking Dead, and she did play Martha in Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice at the beginning of the film, if anyone remembers that film, because I know a lot of people hate it, but I don't. And I thought she was really good here for her screen time. I thought she really did a decent enough job with the material. You also have John Malkovich in here. I thought he was really great. Sam and Nikolai Nikolaeff as Alexander. I thought he was pretty good. Carla Aban, Terry Kinney, Puna Jagannathan, Sam Medina. The cast is great for what is required of them in the script. The second positive I do have to say are the action scenes. The action scenes are well shot. I think the action is there when it's required of it. I think the action scenes are well shot. Peter Berg, he knows how to shoot a movie. And the action is not so bad. It's not too bad. The cinematography, the way the movie looks, I do like the color scheming of the film. I do like how it is handled with care and handled with a decent enough story. And I also do think that the film does have a good enough musical score. The score is not the best, but it's not a terrible score that is awful. And I think for the most part the score is passable. I think it's entertaining, I think it's decent, and I think it's fine for what is required of the score. And those are my positives, because this movie, as I said, it does have a lot of things wrong with it. Now, the first thing that is so wrong with the film is the writing. I feel like the script is there, but the script is kind of all over the place, and it doesn't really feel like a cohesive movie script that's written. And I felt like there are some things that could have been explained, in which I think they did say they're going to plan a trilogy and a web series. So I'm not sure if the movie did good enough for that, but for what they had to do with the writing, I felt like the writing could have been a lot better with the script from Leah Carpenter and the story by her and Graham Rowland. I feel like that could have been way better. Also, I feel like the characterization of the characters, we don't get enough characterization of most of this movie's characters, except for Mark Wahlberg's character, except for Iko Uwais, and also a little bit of character development on Lauren Cohan's character. But the rest of the characters, I feel like this movie could have taken its time to get us to know most of our characters, because after all, this is a action thriller, and this is a Peter Berg Mark Wahlberg film, and I felt like they could have added a lot more to the characters than they should have. Also, the editing is very, very chaotic. The editing is so chaotic, so weird, that most times it doesn't really feel like the editing is actually doing its job. There are moments that the movie doesn't flow well. There are some weird cuts and anything like that. And also, for an hour and 34 minutes, the film gets quite boring at times. I feel like the film does quite get boring in most areas, especially with the middle of the film. Now, the third act of this movie, it is very weak and disappointing. The ending is disappointing. I feel like the ending was like, I get what they're going for, but it doesn't really do all of that, and I felt like that should have been a lot better. And you don't even get to know what happened to most of the team members at the end of the film, which that was a big letdown. Also, there's a lot of predictability in here, and predictability is not that bad, but there's just way too many predictable moments. You already know what's going to happen. You already know what's going to happen to that character and that character, and there's just not enough tension as I felt like it should have had, and I think that also really hurts the film. And the last negative I do have to mention is the acting of Ronda Rousey. Now, Ronda Rousey, she is a good wrestler. I will say she's a good enough wrestler. She's beautiful, but she's not a very good actress, and The Expendables 3 and Furious 7 has proven that. She tries her best here, but most of her delivery comes off as over the top. It comes off a little cringeworthy and unbearable to think of. And that's where I feel like she should have been a lot better in her acting. And if she was better in the acting process here, I feel like I would have given her more credibility to it. But unfortunately, Ronda Rousey, just like in The Expendables 3 and Furious 7, she phones it in again. So, my overall thoughts on Mile 22, it's a decent enough film. I will say there are some good performances from the cast. There is some good action scenes here. There is some fair enough cinematography here. But I felt like the characterization could have been better. The writing could have been better. There could have been less predictability. It could have picked up its pace, especially for a movie that's only an hour and 34 minutes. And Ronda Rousey's acting is very, very cringeworthy in most of the time. But I will say, if you are looking forward to seeing what Mark Wahlberg and Peter Berg do after 3 collaborations, I will say give this a watch, but don't watch it in the theater. I will say you can wait to watch this at home, and you can easily wait to watch this movie on Netflix. So my rating for Mile 22 is that I'm going to give this movie wait for Netflix. Like I said, there are some decent enough things in here. I just feel like the story should have been a lot better than what we got in here. And for a fourth collaboration between Peter Berg and Mark Wahlberg, I was very let down here, and I feel like it should have been a lot better. Next up in this catch-up video is we're going to talk about the drama film Searching. It is the latest drama thriller film, which is directed by Aneesh Chagonty and written by Aneesh Chagonty and Sev Ohanian, and stars John Cho, Debra Messing, and Michelle La, and produced by Timur Bekmambetov, who directed Wanted and directed Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, which was one of my underrated films and one of my favorite films of the year 2012. Now, the plot of Searching is after David Kim's 16-year-old daughter goes missing, a local investigation is opened and a detective is assigned to the case. But 37 hours later, and without a single lead, he decides to take matters into his own hands and search the one place that no one has looked yet, where all secrets are basically kept today, and is in his daughter's laptop. So we have Unfriended in if it was a thriller. So in this movie, the technology we use every day to communicate, he must trace his daughter's digital footprints before she disappears out of his sight forever. And that is the plot of Searching in a nutshell. going into this movie wasn't huge on my radar, but then I heard about it from a trailer, and then from what I heard, the film was complete at 2017, but it didn't get released until 2018. But it did have its world premiere on January 21st at the Sundance Film Festival, and then Sony acquired the rights for $5 million, and it was going to come out on August 3rd, but it came out limited on August 24th and opened wide on August 31st. And I was interested in this story, in this premise about a dad trying to find his daughter through the use of internet. And so I decided to check the movie out, and this movie definitely lived up to the expectations. Originally, this film was titled Search, but they changed it from Search to Searching. So let's get into what I think of this movie, and honestly, I have to say, like I said, this movie lived up to the hype. This is a very original, well executed, well-rounded characters, well acted, well directed movie that has no predictability except for one little moment. So let's get into the positives of this film. Now, this movie, you have some fantastic acting performances from everyone in this movie. I think everyone does a fantastic job for what they have to do, and they do exactly what is required of them, and I feel like what is required of them, they do very well. The script is very well handled, is very well written. I like the influence of the story, Unfriended being an influence for a thriller drama like this, and I think that really ties into the film's premise and into the emotion. And you have a great character development in this movie as well. Basically, David Kim, John Cho's character, he basically has a wife and a daughter, and then he looks through videos of his daughter Margot and his late wife Pamela, and we get something that she died from cancer. Spoiler alerts. And so after that, David and Margot's relationship grows more distance, and then that leads us in one night, and Margot leaves to be with her study group, and he sleeps, and she calls 3 times, and then that happens a lot of intensity, and when his daughter goes missing, that's where this movie really does kick in. The beginning of the movie is not very slow. It gets you straight in, gets you straight out. And I think the performances in this movie from everyone especially is great. John Cho is fantastic here as David Kim. I thought he really did a fantastic job, and I thought he just brought it, and he really did an incredible job of conveying emotions, intensity on his face. And this, you could tell John Cho was into this. John Cho is a great actor, and he is an actor that he doesn't really get a lot of work, but I have seen him in the Harold and Kumar movies. I love him as Sulu in the newer Star Trek films, and I really enjoyed his performance on the short-lived ABC TV series Selfie, which I reviewed already, which had him and Karen Gillan. So here, he's really great as always. He's doing a great job. He gives a great performance, and I like the daughter of this movie, Michelle La. Her performance was outstanding. I really love Debra Messing in this movie as the detective working on the case. I really love the rest of the cast, including Sarah Son as the late wife, Joseph Lee as Peter, the brother, and just, I really love the acting here. The direction by Aneesh Chagonty is very nice. This was a directorial debut for, I think he's a boy or girl, I don't know, but I will say that his direction is so freaking incredible. It's so fantastic, and I really thought his directing really stood out here. I thought, wow, this guy knows how to do a movie. And the way this movie looks, the great suspense, I love the suspense that carries with this film. I really love how it's done. I really like how they decide to go this route and do something different with the laptop premise. And the writing in this movie is excellent. I have nothing bad to say about the writing in this film. You have some darn good writing in this movie, and it is very strong. It is very amazing here, and I think it is very, very powerfully well done through the hands of the writing team and the directing. The music is well done. I love the editing. It flows by good. You don't have to wait over an hour for something to happen. And I just really enjoy most of that. Most of what every single detail that this movie was doing. This movie was not playing around, and the film did its job very well for the most part. It did its job very well. I was very impressed with what the movie was doing, and for an hour 42 minutes I was just interested. I don't know how much the budget was, but this was great. Now, I do have one negative with this movie. I guess the only negative I do have is that I feel like there was one little scene towards the middle or end of the movie that I didn't really care for. It didn't really take me out of the movie. I just felt like that easily could have been taken out of the film. But other than that, that's the only negative I have. Overall, Searching is a very well acted, very well written, very well executed, suspenseful, intense movie, and I think that this movie definitely deserves its attention. This movie has a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, and Rotten Tomatoes, they know what they're talking about. This is a great film. This is a fantastic film, and I can't wait to see what the director Aneesh Chagonty does in the future, because this was just incredible, and I thought it was just amazing. And if you have not seen this movie, watch it. If you're a fan of thriller films, if you're a fan of something like this, watch it. And the first mainstream Hollywood thriller headlined by an Asian American actor like John Cho, man, they did a damn good job with Searching, and I will give Searching a better than Vampire Academy. Like I said, the only thing that does hurt this movie a little bit from getting that seal of approval is the one little scene I feel like could have been removed, could have been taken out. But I'm not spoiling anything else. Go see it. But we have Spike Lee's newest directorial effort, and that is KkKlansman. KkKlansman is the newest film from Spike Lee, based on a book by Ron Stallworth, produced by Spike Lee, Jameson Blum, and Jordan Peele, stars John David Washington, Adam Driver, Laura Harrier, Topher Grace, and of course you have is a good cast here, and you got Corey Hawkins from Straight Outta Compton. Now, the plot of KkKlansman, of course, is that this is based on a true story. So, this is a biography comedy drama, and this is basically a true story of an American hero. And it is the early 1970s, and Ron Stallworth is the first American detective to serve in the Colorado Springs Police Department. Determined to make a name for himself, Stallworth bravely sets out on a dangerous mission to infiltrate and expose the KKK, aka the Ku Klux Klan. The young detective soon recruits a more seasoned colleague, Flip Zimmerman, which is Adam Driver, into the undercover investigation of a lifetime, and so together they team up to take down the extremist hate group as the organization aims to sanitize its violent rhetoric to appeal to the mainstream and, of course, get noticed. And that's basically the synopsis of KkKlansman in a nutshell. Now, going into KkKlansman, now, I was kind of curious. I didn't know anything about this movie until I saw a little bit of the trailer, and then a TV advertisement, and the only thing I knew is that this was produced by Jordan Peele, Blumhouse, and directed by Spike Lee. And Spike Lee, I like his movies. I enjoyed the 2013 remake, his version of Old Boy with Josh Brolin, Elizabeth Olsen, Samuel Jackson, so Copley, and Palm Clementif. I like Do the Right Thing. I love Jungle Fever, and the guy has a lot of great movies. Not to say he hasn't been without his misfires, but this I was curious about, and this also came out on my birthday, which also The Meg and Slenderman came out on my birthday. But I was curious to see how this would be, and honestly, this was actually a really good film. I just think it is a little bit overpraised, just a little bit, but I can see why this movie gets a lot of attention. So, let me get into my positives. The direction by Spike Lee is really well done. I really love the direction of this film. I think the direction is great, is incredible. I think Spike Lee did a really great job, and this is a return to form for him after so many misfires. But I thought he was really great. I really thought that he was fantastic here. I thought he was amazing here, and directing. And Spike Lee, he is a great director, and I really thought that his directing really suited the film very well. Now, the writing, of course, is great. I feel like the writing here is very well handled. There is some great dialogue in this film, and it knows that it has a lot of great dialogue. And the way this movie is written, but with Spike Lee writing and Charlie Wachtel and David Rabinowitz and Kevin Wilmot, I really think that the direction and the writing really makes this a knockout. And I like the message of the film too. I like the timely themes that this movie has, and every time Spike Lee directs something, you know he's going to have some kind of message. His trademark, basically a Spike Lee joint. And is just very good, and I just think it's very entertaining with that. Now, the excellent cinematography here. I love the cinematography here. I think the cinematography is, this movie is very well shot. Very well shot. You have some great cinematography. I really think it is fantastic. This film is photographed by Sharon Bland, I think, Chase Ivan, and just wow, the way this movie looks is really good. The way this movie plays out in cinematography was really great. The performances from everyone is also really great here too. John David Washington as Detective Ron Stallworth, Adam Driver as Detective Flip Zimmerman, Laura Harrier, Topher Grace, Corey Hawkins, Ashley Atkinson, Robert John Burke. All of the performances in this movie are great. Even Alec Baldwin and Isaac Wheelock Jr., they're great too. All the performances I thought were really great here, and really strong, really superb. They all deliver with the material that is given for them. The nice use of soundtrack. I really love how the soundtrack is well handled. I think the soundtrack is excellent. I think the soundtrack is magnificent. And I just think the soundtrack is, without a doubt, is awesome. It's great. I love the score by Terrence Blanchard, of course. And the soundtrack and the score are both awesome. Both awesome. Now, the humor and the great humor and dramatic moments, is great comedy is really awesome. I love the humor in this movie. I laughed at the humor, and the dramatic moments, I cared about the dramatic moments that was going on, of course. And there is some historical accuracy, and the story of this movie is more dramatic than the events of the book. And the time period has been shifted. Now, the identity of Stallworth's partner was unknown, and Spike Lee decided to make him Jewish for dramatization purposes. Now, the film is depicted in 1972, then 1979, and the first third of the film is accurate, but the KKK's bomb plot was to add to dramatic tension. And I think these changes, they do work. And like I said, when it comes to a movie about a historical event, you have to make sure you do good with it. I'm talking to you, Pearl Harbor. But yeah, the great humor and dramatic moments blends in very well. The chemistry between Adam Driver and John David Washington is also really great. They have great chemistry, and it's very great to see them both have chemistry, playing off each other with the script, and they're just having a good time with it. Now, as much as I do love the film, I will say this movie does have some flaws. Now, the film, it is a little bit too long. It is 2 hours and 15 minutes, and Spike Lee, he does make some longer movies, but here, I do feel like some parts could have dragged out a little bit too much, and I felt like that you could have at least cut some of the boring stuff out, but I can understand why he decided to leave that in, but I just feel like the film could have been at least trimmed down just a few notches in most sections of the film, because the film does go a little bit slow pace, and some of the racial stuff is a little overbearing at times, and I don't mind having racial stuff in movies, but sometimes I can easily say that most of it can become way too much for me if you're not careful. So some of the racial stuff does hurt the film in a little bit. Overall, KkKlansman, I do recommend watching this movie. It is a return to form for Spike Lee with some great characters, some great writing, great direction, cinematography, and superb performances, a great message. Some changes made for dramatic purposes, but that is to be expected. I just feel like some parts of this movie could have been a little trimmed down, and some of the racial stuff could have been toned down just a little bit. But other than that, this is a really great film. I will give this movie here, KkKlansman, an epitastic. Check it out. We have, of course, the second directorial effort. I think second, I'm not sure, but another directorial effort from Reed Morano, and that is called I Think We're Alone Now. I Think We're Alone Now is directed by Reed Morano and is written by Mike Mikowski. So, starring Peter Dinklage and Elle Fanning, and cinematography is done by Reed Morano. So, the plot of I Think We're Alone Now is after the human race is wiped out, Dell is alone in the world, and he lives in his small, empty town, content in his solitude and the utopia he's mentally created for himself, until he is discovered by Grace, who is an interloper whose history and motifs are obscure, and to make matters worse, she wants to stay with him. And that's basically what we're dealing with here. Now, going into this movie, I was curious to see what Reed Morano would do next, because I enjoyed her directorial effort of the film Meadowland, which had Olivia Wilde in it, and I really liked her cinematography work and her directing work in that film, and I really liked her cinematography on the short-lived HBO TV series Venue, which also had Olivia Wilde. So I was curious to see what she come up with, and I did not expect her to do a sci-fi film, but this was actually really darn great. Wow. Let's talk about it. Now, the execution and the way this movie looks, I like how it looks. Reed Morano has an eye for visual detail, and she knows that she is making something that people is going to watch, and so she's not going to disappoint you with something. And I will say that her execution and her direction and her cinematography, they are both look really great. I think she does a great job at that, and she does incredible with the camera. She's able to convey the emotions and the range of her actors, and it shows in her directing and her cinematography work in her previous directorial effort, Meadowland, and this movie is no exception. And I will say that she really does a great job at doing that here. I think she really knows exactly what she's doing, and she's making a good movie here. The writing in this movie is very smart. I do like how Mike Mikowski, he wrote this film, and it's written very well. And I think the writing here is great. The music in the movie is excellent. I do like the soundtrack choices. I do like the music choices here, and I think the music is really good here by Gregory Trippy, and the soundtrack choices are very well handled. So that's another plus. The performances from everyone is magnificent. It's not that large of a cast, but Peter Dinklage and Elle Fanning, they do a really great job. I love their characters. I like their different sides of their characters. And I also really enjoyed Paul Giamatti and Charlotte Gainsbourg. And the performances are really great, and you can tell that this was filmed in New York. So yep, that's pretty awesome. And the direction here, and that is no exception. And the acting is really good here. The emotional moments are handled very well. I really like the emotional moments that are presented in this movie. I think the emotional moments are really great, as well as the moments of a sense of humor. And the movie's not afraid to have a sense of humor, and I applaud Reed Morano for both of those films. And all these positives, the only negative I do have with this film is that I feel like Paul Giamatti is underused a little bit. I feel like he could have been in it more, but what can you do? So overall, I don't really have a whole lot to say on this movie. I would just say watch it. You'll be glad you did. And I do recommend watching this. If you are a fan of Reed Morano's cinematography work and her directorial effort in Meadowland, you are going to really like this film. So, for my rating system, I will give this movie better than Vampire Diaries. So, yeah. Next up is To All the Boys I Loved Before. This is directed by Susan Johnson, based on a novel of the same name by Janie Han, stars Lana Condor, Janel Parrish, Noah Centineo, and Anna Catchart. And the plot of To All the Boys I Loved Before is that we meet this teenager named Laura Jean Covey, and she writes letters to all of her past lovers, and the letters are meant for her eyes only, until one day when all the love letters are sent out to her previous loves. Her life is soon thrown into chaos when her foregoing loves confront her one by one. That's basically as simple I can go. Now, my expectations for this, I didn't know much about this one, so I saw people talking about this one on YouTube, and I decided to check it out. And I got a pretty interesting film out of it. Now, the excellent acting here is really great. I love the directing here. Susan Johnson, she directed this very well. I do like how this movie is directed. I think she gets some great shots. I think she knows this story well, having read the book. Not me, the director. The acting from everyone is really great here. I really love everyone in this film, from John Corbett to Lana Condor herself, Janel Parrish, Anna Catchart. It's great to see her get more work after Descendants 2. Noah Centineo, the acting in this movie I thought was really great here, and I thought it was, the acting and direction are both very well handled here. There's a lot of heart into this film, and I really like the heart that this film does have. It's not afraid to fully say what it wants to say, and I think that it does a good job at doing that. And to the credibility, I have to say, I think the director and the writers do a really great job at that. The music in this movie is great. I really like the music here. The soundtrack, I really enjoy. I have no problem with the soundtrack or music whatsoever. I thought that those were very well handled, and I thought they're pretty entertaining. So yeah, I enjoyed them, and I had a lot of fun with the music and soundtrack. Did you have some nice moments of romance and drama, and some very cool moments, and I really enjoy some of the humor they were going for and some of the jokes they did. I thought that was really well handled. I thought that was very creative and inventive, and I love the humor in this movie. There was a lot of humor and a lot of dramatic moments, and the film is not afraid to admit that. And so that's where I really do feel like this movie comes into play, with some great acting, with some great directing, the great heart that this has, the great humor, and the great music soundtrack. From technical aspects, the film is edited very well, is shot very well. There's not a dull moment at all. And I do have two negatives with this movie, and I'll get into those. The first negative is I feel like this film does suffer a little, just a tiny bit, from some of the rom-com cliches that most of these romantic comedy movies keep having. And yeah, this is Netflix, and there are some cliches that this movie does have, but it doesn't make it a bad movie. I just feel like some of those cliches could have been 100% avoided. And there is this one unlikable character I didn't really care too much for, and she was pretty annoying. I really hated her character, and it's not the main character, it's another character in the film. But other than that, I guess those are the only two problems that I have with the film overall. So overall, I will say, if you're a fan of teen romance films and you need one, check this one out. You might like this one. I was pleasantly surprised with how this one did, and for the most part, it was pretty enjoyable. So I will say I'm gonna give this one a highly recommend it. And now for the sixth and last review in this little catch-up video, and that is A.X.L. Now, A.X.L, this is directed by Oliver Daly and stars Alex Neustatder, Becky G, and Thomas Jane. And so what A.X.L is about is that we have this top secret robotic dog that has advanced artificial intelligence created by the military. After an experiment goes wrong, A.X.L is discovered hiding in the desert by Alex, who is a kind-hearted outsider who finds a way to connect with the robot. The two soon develop a special friendship based on trust, loyalty, and compassion. And helping Miles can gain confidence, A.X.L goes to any length to protect his new companion, including facing off against the scientists who want their creation back, with the help of a female character who's played by Becky G, named Sarah Reyes. And that's basically the plot of this one. Now, this one, it wasn't really on my radar, but there were some negative reviews, and I decided to give this movie a chance. And I gave the movie a fair shot, and I will say, just like Mile 22, it's disappointing at best. But there are some good things in this movie, and I'll get to those. For the most part, I will say you do have some solid performances in this movie by the cast. I thought Alex Neustatder, he did a good job here as the character Miles Hill. I thought he was pretty good here, and he did a fine job. He had to work with material that's not very well written, but he tried to do something with it. Becky G, this is the second film that Becky G's been in, and I will say she is really good here. She's really great here. I thought she did a really great job, and I thought she, of course, she did good here for what was given with her. So did Alice Nicole, Dominic Wayne, and Thomas Jane. They all do fine for what they have to give. I think the effects on the dog, they look nice. I think they look fine. They're not awful. They look pretty good for the most part, and they're not too terrible. So I guess I can give the film some credibility for that. From as far as technical aspects, I thought the technical aspects, the way the movie is shot, and the way the movie is edited, and the way they handle the effects on the dog, I thought those were very well done, and I thought those weren't so bad either. I thought those were handled with some care. You could tell there is passion put into this, because this is based on a little short by the director Oliver Daly called Miles, and yeah, I do appreciate this for being an original idea. A teenage boy encountering a robotic doll from technology. And the score is pretty decent for the most part. I will say the score is decent for the most part. You do have decent scores, not the worst score I've heard. There's way worse. But the problems that I do have with this film are relevant. I feel like it's interesting, but the film is not interesting enough to where I would say check this out. And for the most part, there are some very slow parts in this movie. Very slow parts. This is only an hour and 40 minutes, and half the time it is slow. Half the time it gets very stale very fast, and there's barely any character development for most of these characters, and I feel like the is more of the script. I kind of feel like the script should have had more to do, more behind it, and it just doesn't come to that, and it just kind of just goes down there, and it does, those problems that it has, it does really hurt the movie. And the budget was $10 million, and unfortunately this is one of the box office disappointments. So yeah, but I did give this film a watch. I will say overall it's decent. It's just not a movie I'm going to watch again unless it was on Netflix. It does have some good performances, it does have some nice effects, it does have some good technical aspects and a decent score, but I feel like the film should have been a lot more interesting. I felt like the slow parts really could have picked up its pace, and the character development should have been there a lot more. So for that, A.X.L, I'll give it a wait for Netflix. That was my little 2018 movie review catch-up. I know there are still some 2018 releases I haven't got to, but those will be separate videos. But like I said, if you don't want to watch the whole thing, because this is going to be a pretty long video, I will try my best to split each individual review into their own video, but I'm not making any promises. So I will say, let me know what you guys think about this video down below. Have you seen any of these 6 movies? Do you like any of them? Do you not like them? I will see you guys in the next video. Be sure to follow me on all my social media links, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Stardust, Letterboxd. Be sure to like my Facebook fan page, Future Filmmaker 39480. Check out my official group. And also, stick around on the Land of the Nerd Pack channel for more stuff. So, this is Future Filmmaker 39480, and you guys keep it cool as always. Bye.